guys, welcome back to the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling, and this is a news break, and yeah, I haven't been around for a while. I guess we're going to catch up in this video. Before we do that, if you like this video and other videos like it, you know we got to do the YouTube thing. Hit the like button, subscribe button, and the notification bell so you're aware of new videos when they come out, when I do them. This has probably been the longest stretch that I haven't done a video. I think it's been like 3 or 4 weeks. And yeah, it's something that has been around with a lot of, I've seen a lot of other wrestling fans express the same opinion, and that's kind of that everything's on the decline. We're going to talk about this more. We're getting near the end of the year, so for those of you who've watched my videos over the years, you know December, I usually do end of the year videos. There's a lot to talk about, especially with what's been going on in the last couple of months in wrestling. One of those things is a rather big thing happened yesterday. Ariel Helwani, I always pronounce his name wrong, I apologize, finally had Tony Khan on his show. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I barely paid attention to this when it happened, but several years ago, they had another interview, and it didn't go well. And Tony Khan had called, I think he called him a hack, or he wasn't a wrestling journalist and all this kind of stuff. There was some heat between the two of the guys, let's say it that way. Tony Khan, after Darby Allin and other people, including Maven, who's not even in AEW, had been on Ariel's show, he decided to come on and they're going to give another try. And the interview was, there were some moments that felt tense because Ariel asked questions that he should ask as a journalist. He's probably, you know, you may want to not call him a pro wrestling journalist, but he does ask questions that we want answers to. Questions that you usually don't get in those post pay-per-view media scrums that they do. Maybe one day I will be allowed to be at one and I can ask some questions too. But I think there are a lot of takeaways I got from watching this interview. One of the big ones is Tony Khan, to his credit and also to his detriment, it's kind of a double-edged sword. He did a lot of promoting AEW during this interview. He started out from his very first answer. Almost every third answer was, yeah, AEW Dynamite's going to be on tomorrow, 8 p.m. on HBO Max and TBS, and Collision will be on, and it's a dual thing. And he kept, which he's supposed to do. He's supposed to do that. If you're going to go on Ariel Helwani, I'm just going to call him Ariel because my tongue apparently does not like his name. Ariel's show. You want to take that opportunity to promote your show. And I think the atmosphere around it, a lot of people don't like that from Tony Khan because he's doing the salesman thing, but every promoter, he's a promoter, and every wrestling promoter is always supposed to promote their shows. But they did get to some interesting topics. They did bring up the CM Punk stuff. Of course, that's still lingering around from a couple of years ago.
So like the playing the footage. Did you think that was the best move in response? Because it felt like that was in response to the interview. That's what it felt like.
It's interesting because I do think that I didn't necessarily agree with the description.
So that was your way of showing like
no,
this is
not necessarily. And by the way, I really think you're a great interviewer, and I very much appreciate it because we've had a very, very good interview and all the questions
you have.
so far. And now you've got me where I'm enjoying talking to you so much. You've really got me hooked in. So I questioned even the challenging ones. And I didn't necessarily agree with everything.
Tony is very political and he takes a very diplomatic stance. And I think in order for him to be in the position that he's in and not lose his mind, he has to kind of do that. And not take the overwhelming mountain of criticism that he gets every single day, which he does say he pays attention to. So he clearly pays attention to that. But he has to have this kind of attitude that he has, because if he lets it get to him, it's going to rattle him. And I actually kind of applaud him for having, even though it can seem kind of disingenuous at times, but having that attitude is like, yeah, it might piss him off, but he's not gonna like stay there. He's not gonna stew in it. Talking about him listening to other podcasters, Ariel asked him about some of the old timers, like your Vince Russos and your Jim Cornettes and Eric Bischoffs and guys, frankly, who are 30, 40 years outdated from what wrestling is now, and their criticisms of him. And his criticisms And the criticisms of him, because I've also said that Tony Khan, where you may look at Jim Cornette as being stuck in the 60s and the 70s and 80s, and Vince Russo stuck in the 90s, and, you know, Bischoff stuck in the 90s, you know, you could say that Tony Khan himself is kind of stuck in the 2010s and hasn't updated AEW for what the 2020 wrestling is. But I think he's probably done a better job at that than most of them. And that's just going to be, you know, from what you grew up with. You're going to like what you grew up with. And Tony Khan grew up on ECW and old Attitude Era WWF and all the territory stuff. He's a wrestling historian. He does pay attention to it, but again, he doesn't let it rattle him too much, or at least not that he's going to show in public. He did say the word consistency a lot. And those of you who are subscribed to my channel and have heard me, my number one criticism about AEW has always been consistency. So it was interesting for me to hear him repeat the word consistency over and over again. I do know that somebody from AEW used to watch this channel. I don't think they do anymore, but I know they have paid attention to some of the things that people like me and other YouTubers say. And it's good to hear that they do take that criticism and they do take it into account, but they're not just going to they're not going to book AEW the way I want to book it just because I say it, or Solo wants to say it, or JD from New York has a fit every time Tony Khan opens his mouth. He's not going to do that, which he shouldn't either. So again, I think he came out good on that one. And I would agree that in 2025, compared to 2023 and 2024, the consistency has been better this year in AEW in 2025. The biggest example of that is how great All In was this year. It probably is. It's probably going to be in my top 3 best shows of the year. It might be number 1, depending on what happens with the rest of the year. But that was a good show where we saw the consistency of the booking, even though at the time we may have kind of complained about the Death Riders and Mercedes. But when it came down to Tony and Mercedes, when it came down to Hangman winning that championship, that was one of the best matches, one of the best events, and one of the best finishes to a wrestling show we had this year. So the consistency definitely helped them get to that point at All In. They've had some fall downs. Inconsistency. I think some of that's due obviously to injuries. A lot of guys being injured. Will Ospreay, who he mentioned and talked about how much he loves Will Ospreay. I think we all love Will Ospreay. Swerve Strickland, which, by the way, Ospreay, hopefully you are getting better. Swerve Strickland, Kenny Omega basically wrestling with half a stomach. Kota Ibushi's out. Jay White's been out for a long time. A lot of people get injured. But the real focus then came down to Ariel asking about certain wrestlers, and I was surprised that they went there because I didn't think they were going to go to this level. But he did ask about Chris Jericho, and Tony Khan, again, very political with his answers, and I think that pretty much is our confirmation that Chris Jericho is leaving AEW and going back to. I think everybody pretty much knows that at this point, and that kind of confirmed it for me the way Tony Khan answered that question. Of course, he would like to have Jericho back. He said something like that, and usually when he says something like that, it usually means the person's leaving the company. They asked about the Andrade thing. Tony Khan said he didn't want to comment too much on it too. Ariel tried to kind of get him to say something. There was a little moment there where Ariel tried to get Tony Khan to say something, and Tony caught himself before he did. And said, I can't comment on that, which was smart on his part. But he did say, we would love to have Andrade back when he can be available. Britt Baker was an interesting one. Now, Britt Baker is one that most people have thought that she's leaving. But listening to Tony Khan's answer compared to the one he gave about Chris Jericho, he seems fairly confident that Britt Baker is coming back to AEW. He almost basically said it. So I think Britt's not going to WWE. I think she's coming back to AEW. Her issues are a lot of health problems and injuries, and Tony's talked about that in this interview. A couple other wrestlers they mentioned, some stuff not worth going into, but the overall tone I got from this is that, number one, it was cool to see this. There's so much unnecessary vitriol. There's way too much unnecessary vitriol in the wrestling world. You guys who follow me know how I feel about it. I think this wrestling tribalism stuff is absolutely fucking stupid. We can have PlayStation and then Xbox. We can have Nintendo and Sega. We can have HBO and Cinemax. We can have different things in the same genre also be big time. It doesn't have to just be WWE. I like the fact that they got together. And Tony's even kind of trying to get Ariel to put some AEW memorabilia in his office. It was really a fun interview. I would definitely suggest watching it. You're going to hear a lot of people out there. I'm not paying that much attention to my peers in the pro wrestling YouTube space anymore. I got tired of it. It's just terrible. It's horrible out here. But so hopefully, and I've been considering, since I am getting older, and I did kind of take less of an interest in wrestling in the last couple of months to, I've been talking about it for a while now, about maybe I'm done with this. But I also think that, if I don't I do voice things for a lot of you guys that you're not going to hear other places. You guys, I know from your comments over the years, the way I look at wrestling is different than a lot of other people look at wrestling. And there are a lot of us like this. There's a couple thousand people, obviously, from my video counts and my video views that feel about wrestling the same way I do. It's like, it's not this tribalism war. It's just wrestling and it's cool. I like AEW. I like WWE. I like New Japan. I like any wrestling. I'll watch any wrestling. I watched NXT this past week, and I watched Monday Night Raw this week, which I rarely do. I don't have an issue of I want anybody to go out of business. I don't root for somebody or cheer for them to lose. I don't think that the success or failure of AEW or WWE is somehow a win or a loss for me or something for me to dunk on somebody else for. All of that stuff is really dumb, and it's boring, and it's old. And I think at this point in time, unless we want to revert back to 2012, which is what I'm fearing that we're doing right now, the wrestling community, we need to get this shit together and stop doing this tribalism stuff. It's damaging to the industry, and we're seeing it right now. WWE can pop a crowd at Madison Square Garden. AEW can pop a crowd by doing a show at Arena Mexico or All In. New Japan can pop a crowd by having Tanahashi retire, but those are, like I said, popped crowds. They are big crowds for a specific thing. John Cena's retirement, Hiroshi Tanahashi's retirement, AEW being in a place for the first time. What wrestling should be right now in 2025 is WWE should have sold out Madison Square Garden a couple weeks ago. AEW Dynamite should be averaging 5,000 to 10,000 fans at Dynamite every single week. New Japan should be doing a hell of a lot better at its shows, and we're not there right now. Every wrestling company is down. And again, we'll get more into this as we get to the year end. 2025 has turned out to be an interesting year, but it's also the beginning of a potential downturn. And I do fear that, and I don't think that some of the people who they're in this space just to crap on other people and other fans and other companies, I don't think they understand kind of the damage that spreading that kind of mind virus around in the wrestling industry does. But I think, again, as far as the interview, I think you guys should check it out. You're going to glean some insights. You do, again, have to kind of read between the lines of a lot of what Tony Khan says. If I were to offer one piece of advice for AEW, and I guess I'll do it in this video since it might be watched by people from AEW, is the consistency. Yes, I think you guys have done a great job of it. And this is tagging on to what Ariel asked Tony about what does he think about AEW and the ratings and the numbers and all this stuff. I think one of the things, and I've mentioned this before, and this might be worth a individual video on, I think AEW, it's kind of high time for them to have a branding change. Their brand, their visuals, their graphics, the way they present themselves, the way they market themselves, I was thinking about this for the last week. It doesn't fit with the content. They have all these big bright colors. They basically have, corporate sports marketing and promotion and branding. But I'll put it to you this way. If WWE is the Street Fighter of pro wrestling, AEW should be the Mortal Kombat and should present itself that way. But that's just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. And if you are interested in more videos, I will be doing more videos. Again, December, I have a lot of time off from all the other stuff that I do. So there will be a lot of videos coming out in December. Of course, it's the year-end videos. Looking forward to that. There's a lot to talk about with the big stories from this year. What failed, what worked, best match, best tag team, best wrestler, best whatever, worst whatever. So again, if you aren't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, I will see you guys here for more news, rumors, and commentary on the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.